here
This
for everybody to
conference will
join.
now be recorded.
All right, everybody. I think we'll get started here. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to join us today. We've received lots of interest and comment, and so we'll just work through this some presentation and then we'll hear some public comment at the end. All right. Just wanted to kind of give everybody an idea of the variety of complaints that code compliance receives. Since last October, we've received over 100 code violation submissions. The graph kind of shows the variety of statuses that those violations are in. So we've closed about 25% of those. Many of them are waiting review still. And a lot of them, most of them are under review. In general, code compliance is a really slow process. The goal is to achieve compliance and not to collect fines or invoke penalties, but we want to find compliance with any violation that we have. Because of the variety and the volume of complaints that we receive, we have to provide them some sort of a prioritization. You know, most of the more severe issues that we have that cause irreparable harm, like developments in floodways, dumping of human waste in rivers, they're going to receive a higher priority than any other issues that maybe for obtaining a permit for a sign or some sort of a setback violation. So we do have to prioritize the cases that we get and the time that we spend on them. So this kind of gives you an idea of some of those considerations that we take into account for when we do kind of prioritize the cases we have. Wanted to give people kind of an idea of some of the examples of violations that we receive. These are examples of auto wrecking yards. Anything with over 3 inoperable vehicles is considered an auto wrecking yard. And some of these are in sensitive areas such as wetlands or floodways. And so we deal with those often. We also work with the building department on unpermitted buildings and other developments. Here's an example of a structure being built on a storage container with a lean-to. This was an unpermitted development. We also deal with unsafe structures that deal with health and safety issues. This is an unsafe building and it's being held up by a couple of timbers along the side of the building there. Tent and RV occupation is a concern, both for the individuals living in the situations, but also for the public in general. And so not only do we work with finding compliance with the violation, but we also partner with other agencies throughout the community to try to provide some help and assistance for these folks that are in situations like this. Solid waste accumulation is an issue that code compliance responds to frequently. Here's a few pictures of some cases that we've dealt with over the last, I think these were all within the last 12 months. Code compliance works with environmental health department on septic concerns. Here's a number of failing systems that we've responded to over the last year. Failing septic system, bubbling septic systems, people digging trenches for drain fields. These are all health and safety issues. A lot of people have no septic systems at all. These present obvious health and safety concerns for not only the occupants of these places, but also concern for staff and also the public. So as we kind of zoom in a little bit more to short-term rental stuff, I think Gail wanted to talk a little bit about some of the ordinance history that's kind of brought us to where we are now with our county code. Gail, do you want to make some comments on the history stuff?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Rob. My name's Gail Henriksen. I'm the Community Development Director for Clatsop County. And the short-term rental ordinance actually got adopted right after I started in my position with the county, and that was in January of 2018. Prior to that, there had been a separate short-term rental ordinance specifically covering the Arch Cape area, but there were no regulations at that point that covered the rest of unincorporated Clatsop County. So after several months of discussion prior to January 2018, the Board of Commissioners did adopt this ordinance. And part of that was because there were no licensing requirements or any type of inspections that were covering these short-term vacation rentals. There are separate regulations at the state level that cover inspection and licensing of hotels and motels and hostels and bed and breakfast establishments, but nothing for an Airbnb type of situation. And the goals that the Board of Commissioners wanted to address at that time, and I know Commissioner Thompson is here, and I believe she was part of those discussions, and she may also have more to add on this. But as I understand from reading the minutes, what the board wanted to do was to address some of the possible health and safety requirements or possible negative consequences to guests who are staying in these otherwise uninspected, unlicensed rental units, and also to provide a way to address occupancy limits, to provide notice to neighbors, and to also handle issues with parking and solid waste disposal. So after the ordinance was adopted in January of 2018, it went through 2 additional amendments to basically help staff clarify the procedural issues associated with issuing these permits. One of those procedural issues was to change how we notify neighbors. So when we started the process, it was neighbors immediately surrounding the short-term rental property, and it was the responsibility of the short-term rental owner to send out those notifications. And what we found is that a lot of times that didn't always work as we intended it to. So the last revisions that we made actually changed that rule so that assessment and taxation staff with the county now sends those notices to all property owners within 300 feet of a short-term rental unit. As I stated, the ordinance that we're talking about today does not include Arch Cape. It has its own separate short-term rental ordinance that's been in effect for a number of years. And I don't know if Commissioner Thompson would like to add anything to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Henriksen, for that nice segue. Well, I'm delighted we're having this meeting. I would say that it's a work in progress. I'm delighted that neighbors are here of every stripe. I think if we communicate together, we're bound to make progress if we're listening to each other in order to make progress. You know that the County Board of Commissioners is created to be your governing body. You know that our membership changes as elections happen. What's bedrock is what's in state law, county ordinance. Those can be changed, and we're in the process of looking at all of that and listening to each other. So thanks to staff, thanks to the neighbors for showing up, and I'll look forward to hearing what everybody has to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. And Rob, before I send it back to you, I just want to kind of preface where we're looking to go with this. So Rob's going to explain a little bit about what we can and cannot do as staff under the current provisions in the short-term rental ordinance, and talk about the work that he does on a daily basis out there in the field. And then we have opened it up to comments from the public so that we as staff can understand, you know, we hear a lot coming into our office on a complaint level, but also just to have a conversation about, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the short-term rentals, because there will always be all sides and all aspects to this type of use. And that's where we want to take it today. And then we'll follow up on this at the end of the meeting, but we will be compiling all your comments as we talk today, and you'll see those on screen in a bit. And then we will bundle that all together and work with the county manager to schedule it for a work session with the Board of Commissioners. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Rob.
Thanks, Gail and Commissioner Thompson. We'll go to the next slide here, and we're just going to get into some of the standards that short-term rentals need to follow. This is not an extensive list, but I just kind of pulled some of the ones that I felt were most applicable, especially with some of the complaints that I hear. Short-term rental standards for quiet time starts at 10 p.m. Through 7 a.m. the next day. Written notice, the operators need to let tenants know of that. The owner and contact person shall notify every renter in writing of the quiet times. The owner or contact person shall attempt to contact the renter by phone or in person within 20 minutes of receiving any complaint concerning the conduct of a renter. And the owner shall provide covered garbage containers that can be secured. I mean, there's other standards, but those are typically some of the more applicable ones that we're trying to look at commonly. Once the owners are able to meet those standards, short-term rentals are a permitted entity, or they're issued permits, and so those permits are good for 5 years once issued, and they can also be transferred to new owners if those new owners submit. There's a process to transfer the permit to the new owners. The complaint process, it's similar to other areas of the code, but with short-term rentals, what's really encouraged is if there's an issue, we really want the first step to be to contact the designated person on the permit, and those permits are sent out with the neighbor notification that assessment taxation will send out. That person needs to respond promptly and make reasonable efforts to remedy whatever situation is going on that's not in compliance. If that response is not satisfactory in the eyes of the complaining party, then the complaining party can submit a written complaint to code compliance. What I'd ask is that be specific. Photos and videos are really good, especially if the issue is not an ongoing issue. Once I get that, code compliance will work to verify that allegation. And I do that in a number of different ways. Once I'm able to confirm any violation that has occurred, then I'll work to take any appropriate enforcement action. That enforcement action depends in large part to the type of violation that has occurred. Typically, I'll send out a notice. The listing the violation, and I'll state a time frame to find compliance. Additionally, code allows conditions to be attached to short-term rental permits. I can request or require additional inspections to be performed. I can suspend a permit, and we can also revoke a permit. You know, it's also in Chapter 111, I can levy fines against permit holders, and I have not done that. It may have been done before my time, but I have not levied fines at this time. The owner has a time frame to abate the violation. So if it's an ongoing thing, they'll typically have up to 30 days to abate that violation or to demonstrate that no violation exists. And we work a lot with property management companies and owners of short-term rentals to work through finding compliance in a time frame. The administrative review process is basically an opportunity for me or staff to review the information that we have and determine if any additional enforcement action is needed. This is just one of those things in the code that provides a review for staff. As we kind of zoom more in here to the Falcon Cove area, I believe there's 20 short-term rentals that are permitted in the Falcon Cove area. At least we know of 20, and so that just kind of gives you an idea of just the Falcon Cove area. There's about 20 short-term rentals that are in operation down there. Some of the primary complaints that I hear of with short-term rentals in the Falcon Cove area are noise issues, especially on the weekends and in the evenings. There's been complaints of garbage being left or in the right-of-way. A lot of issues with parking. Over occupancy, especially during COVID times, there was some complaints with people operating short-term rentals and over occupancy, and there's been a few issues with trespassing. Just to touch on the noise thing, that when the noise happens, it usually is in the evening when I'm not working, or on the weekends when I'm not working. So commonly, the sheriff's department. Not commonly, but at times the sheriff's department has responded. I'm not sure if there's someone from the sheriff's department on that wants to make comment on that, or just to touch on the noise issues. Paul or Matt, are you with us today?
Good morning. This is Paul Williams, the sheriff's office, and yes, we do respond if a person were to call regarding violating the noise ordinance. As a practical matter, our office is not big at issuing citations. We try to get compliance with cooperation, so that oftentimes means coming out and providing a fair warning, and letting them know if it continues, then we may be forced to take physical enforcement action. But otherwise, we try to gain compliance through cooperation of our citizens. With regards to garbage, short of it being offensive littering, we would not be involved with that at all. Parking, if they're parking on someone else's property or they're blocking driveways, we can address that. The odd thing out there aren't a whole lot of no parking signs. There's some particular places, but and absent that, then we have a challenge. Well, we can't enforce it if it's not signed. Over occupancy, that's not an issue for the sheriff's office to address. And certainly the trespassing, we'd be happy to come out and enforce that if that is an issue.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate those comments. One of the things that we've added here, or in the process of adding, is a new third-party compliance software. It's a service that's going to help monitor, manage, and report short-term rental related items. It's a third-party software that provides a 24/7 bilingual complaint hotline. It's a service that we're expecting to be operational, I don't know, six to 8 weeks. We're still executing contracts and doing the onboarding stuff, but it's in process here. What can be expected with this service? This service will become a primary point of contact that's available 24/7. They will document all the interactions. They will become the entity that will reach out to the designated contact on the short-term rental permits for initial response. So the community members won't need to call individual permit holders or points of contact. They will provide individual and summarized reports to county staff. And that's going to remove a lot of the documentation and verification that county staff require. They're going to do that for us. So code compliance is really expected to become a more streamlined process because of this new service that we're looking at. Go ahead, Gail.
Oh, sorry, Rob. I just want to also stress, while staff has been working behind the scenes to review different companies with this compliance software, this is something that we'll still be taking to the Board of Commissioners to have a discussion about, because it is something that they need to look at and review and approve before we actually put it into place. So if it's something that you think you as a resident or a property owner would support, not to put Commissioner Thompson on the spot, but please contact your commissioner and let her know your views.
Okay, so wait, I have to interrupt here. I've been advocating for this since I think 2005, not this particular software. So let me just tell all my neighbors, you don't need to call me, you don't need to email me. I know where I stand on this issue. If you want to talk to other commissioners, you're welcome to do that. But I've absolutely been an advocate. This has been on my to-do list with the county manager ever since he got here 10.5 months ago. So I'm a yes on this one.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Commissioner, and we're hoping that discussion with the board is going to take place this August, hopefully at the first work session, which would be the second Wednesday of the month. But as soon as we find that out and confirm it, we will send a notice out.
All right, that kind of wraps up what I have to offer here, and we're going to turn this over. Gail's going to kind of run the public comment portion of it. I just need to make her presenter here.
Okay, so as I stated earlier, we're going to be summarizing your comments as you speak. That way, if you can be sure or verify that we're capturing the intent of what you're trying to say. I do have some written comments that I do want to read into the record before we get into the live and in-person comments. Patrick Chapman has sent a question. Is it too late to make public comment? No, it's not. So Rob, if you'll add Patrick Chapman to the end of your in-person comment list, please. And I'm going to go ahead and just read into the record now the 3 sets of written comments that I've received. The first one is from Jeffrey Weil or Wheel, and he says, as I am unable to attend the virtual meeting, I would like to submit my comments to you in writing in lieu of attendance. I am a full-time resident of Falcon Cove and live in Tillamook County, but there are at least 2 Clatsop County short-term rentals within 300 feet of me. I have never received notice from them per the regulation 5.12.080F, ordinance attached. The issues I have are more than likely consistent with other comments you will hear, but I will list them here nonetheless. Trash. Pure and simple, renters do not value the neighborhood and treat it like their own personal dump. If they do put the trash bin on the curb, they do not secure the lid. The owners are absent, so that trash often ends up on the ground as the raccoons work the neighborhood after dark. It is not the fault of the raccoon that it has been made so easy for them. Noise. As I mentioned, we have never received notice from the owners about contact information for the rental homes. Even if we did, that leaves the issue up to us, the residents of the neighborhood, to police the issue. Renters do not respect the fact that there are families living in earshot from them. They are on vacation after all, and too many of them treat the event like a bachelor party with no limits and no rules, and are allowed to do so because there is no enforcement of the quiet hours unless the neighborhood seeks to enforce it. Once again, allowing those that seek to profit from property take precedence over those that actually live and vote in the county. Traffic. Neither Clatsop nor Tillamook takes any responsibility for the roads in Falcon Cove, and the volume of cars has dramatically increased in recent years as all of the rental homes turn over renters every few days. The roads are horrible and rapidly deteriorating because of this increased traffic. Final issue. There is no obvious enforcement of any of the regulations. There appears to be no limit to the number of rentals the county will allow. When you combine the fact that homes are occupied regularly beyond the carrying capacity of the infrastructure, read roads, water, and especially septic, to support it without county leadership on the issue, the county is willingly letting this and every other unincorporated neighborhood fall prey to the profiteers who care not one bit about the neighborhood, but only about profiting from their businesses. Lastly, how does the county justify preventing small businesses from establishing themselves in the homes that would be vastly less resource intensive, but then allow unlimited short-term rentals with essentially no limits, as the limits that are codified are not actively enforced? I do appreciate you listening to my neighbors on the call and reading the comments sent in. I do hope the county can find a way to establish a better set of commitments to its residents versus acquiescing to those that seek to profit from property at the expense of Clatsop County residents. Jeffrey Weil, 6085 Columbia Street. The second set of comments is from the Falcon Cove Beach Water District Board of Commissioners. It says, hello and thank you for meeting with the Falcon Cove Beach community. Please accept the following testimony from the Falcon Cove Beach Water District. We are a small, all-volunteer water district located in the south part of the county. The community was established as a residential community and is zoned residential. In the formation of the community, vacation rentals were specifically prohibited. The water district and its residents have planned around that and rely on our local government to enforce related community and livability codes that supports residential communities. This community relies on the water district to provide clean, reliable water service. Residents cannot live here without that. It is an essential need. Increasingly, we see our limited water supply is consumed by transient, not residential consumption, particularly during the drier summer period when what are zoned to be single-family homes are instead filled with large groups of transient vacationers. We know that on average, a typical U.S. family household is 2.5 people. Most of the transient rental properties are advertising for 3 or more times that many people, even 4 and 5 times that. We also know that the typical U.S. citizen uses 75 to 100 gallons of water a day. Add to that the frequent turnover day, burden of intensive laundry for 10 people every couple of days, with houses and septic systems designed and built for a typical household, with a water system plan to provide water to a typical U.S. household size and use, this commercial transient usage of many times the typical residential use has serious and critical implications, not just to the consumption of water, but also to the burden of the septic systems, related erosion, roads, noise, affordable housing, and overall community health and livability. It is all related. The district has noted that along with the excessive water consumption in a majority of transient rental properties, the overall number of these commercial properties has doubled just in the past few years. Again, the impact to an essential resource like clean, reliable, and affordable drinking water is significant. Our recommendation as an agency partner is to discontinue the transient commercial use of single-family residences in rural residential areas like ours. The undue burdens put on our drinking water system and our community as a whole are not sustainable. Thank you, Falcon Cove Beach Domestic Water District Board of Commissioners. And finally, the last set of written comments is from Jason Stegner. It says, to Clatsop County transient rental managers. The rental next door to me is advertised for 10 people. I'm confident more than 10 people have stayed in the house. I've witnessed it and so have others. It has been reported to your office more than once. The near daily routine is 3 to 4 cars show up. The house garage is never used, even though the permit says it must be, and many times the driveway isn't used and cars are lined up on the road. The vacationing party starts the day by celebrating. They are often yelling at each other from the deck to the ground, walking around the property, and in many cases trespassing on neighboring properties to get a better view of the ocean or get cell service or just snoop. They then open and close each car door 3 to 4 times to unload their gear. Then the gear is hauled all around the property and sometimes neighboring properties and continue to party on and off throughout their stay. The noise is elevated throughout the stay. In contrast, we have other neighbors that come down to use their second homes, and they are hardly noticed because they respect the neighborhood and don't bring in, I am paying $300 a night and getting every penny's worth mentality. Residents and part-time residents understand this is a residential family neighborhood, and we are not all on vacation. After dark, the outdoor fires start, sometimes in the fire pit that's 10 feet from our property line on a failed septic system, sometimes on neighbors' property. We can hear them inside our house. They wake and frighten my child often. Of course, quiet hours are 10 p.m., but it doesn't get dark till 10 p.m., and they continue to party outside well into the night. They're on vacation, right? Well, we are not. They often leave every exterior light on, usually throughout the night. The light floods ours and neighboring homes with light and keeps people up. The septic field for this house was built originally for 2 bedrooms per the original septic application. They advertised as 3 bedrooms, so how could 10 people even stay there? How could this even be allowed, much less more than 10 as mentioned before? This is not single-family use and is likely a major reason they have been polluting the neighborhood with sewage. This number of people uses 2 to 3 times the water as a single family in a place that continues to have a water supply issue and major erosion. Allowing these large group sizes has so many negative impacts and is so outside the residential norm of typical use or family size. Once the large party leaves, the house cleaners show up, often idling in 2 cars behind our house, and we can hear and see them for the next 3 hours opening the doors and windows, back and forth to their cars and opening and closing the car doors multiple times throughout the day, smoking cigarettes and smoking pot, trespassing on neighbors' property, trying to get cell service or smoking. The cleaners and guests often leave the trash overflowing, and critters knock the trash over and spread it up and down the road, and then it starts all over again. Issues are never dealt with immediately. The property manager is 30 minutes away and never answers the phone. The owners are hours away and often don't answer their phone. Usually issues happen well into the night. No one wants to leave their house at midnight and come to Falcon Cove to address issues. Final point is that this is a residential neighborhood. We live here full time. These properties are nothing more than a hotel. They are a commercial interest. People now buy these houses strictly to make money. This is the definition of a business. These neighborhoods are not zone commercial and they violate the intended zoning. There are places for short-term rentals, but rural Clatsop County should not be one of them. I plead for you to think about your home and how you would feel if your life was constantly disrupted every few days by a new group of unregulated strangers. What would you expect from your local officials and elected government to uphold the spirit of community to maintain livability in your home? Thank you for addressing these concerns. Respectfully, Jason Stegner.
All right, Gail, thank you for reading those. Those are all the written comments that were submitted. We'll move into the people that registered for comments. Is Alan Solares on the call today? Okay. Is Nancy Chase on the call today?
Thank you. Yes, Nancy's here. Thank you. And I did talk to Alan. He was recently, he's trying to get into a good cell zone, so you might try him later on. First of all, thank you for holding this meeting, and hearing some of the complaints is alarming. I've had a short-term rental for 25 years at Cove Beach, and it's been very enjoyable. People become friends, and it's a small house, so hopefully I haven't had some of the same problems that other short-term rental folks have had. And I think many people who ended up building or living full-time in Falcon Cove were started out knowing about the place because they rented from me. And I think it gives an opportunity for people who can't afford a home at the beach or don't have a job situation where they can live in such a beautiful place to have, that experience, as well as for their children, and getting children out into that beautiful natural area that we have in the ocean beach, I think is critical. So I'm kind of alarmed at the 100 complaints. And was that just for Falcon Cove this calendar year, Rob?
To clarify that is all violations that the county has received, not just short-term rental complaints in Falcon Cove. Those are all code compliance complaints that we've received in the office.
Well, and then listening to Rob's list of what his other job is, often health and safety, I think the more we can handle the short-term rental complaints ourselves, the better. If I have somebody who has too many people, it's hard to tell when they rent it from you. They don't tell you that. Then I would hope I could call, some of the neighbors who I know to see if they'd walk over and tell, find out what's going on. Or I can, call me, let me know, and I will call the people who are renting, but try to handle it as a group. For instance, I pay extra to have the garbage men come in to take my garbage out, so I don't have to worry about having it left at the curb. So I have bungee cord instructions for the raccoons, and unfortunately they don't enjoy that very much, but put the bungee cord on the can. But I'd just like to propose, if you send out another flyer, is to give my email. And I would like folks to be able, maybe a group of us, to find some positive ways of handling this. And I'm certainly willing to help. If I'm down there, and there's a noise, someone calls, say Amber Geiger, who lives across from me, and she knows her tenants are being noisy, I'm happy to walk over there and talk to them and see if they can reduce the noise. Or if a neighbor, if it's noisy and there's a full-time person there, just walk over and ask them to calm down, and if not, give me a call. But I think I'd love for this to be handled as neighbors and see what we can do to problem solve some of the issues. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. I appreciate that. Is Scott and Carol Harn on the call today? Scott and Carol Harn? Is Aaron Barker?
Hello, yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead. Scott and Carol?
Hi, yes, we're attending today. We're new owners in the area. I'm just interested in the commentary. I don't recall that I registered for any particular comment. Just wanted to listen and get educated.
All right, thank you.
We're thrilled to be here.
Is Aaron Barker on the call today? Aaron Barker? Is Guido Paparoni on the call today? I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it.
Yes, Mr. Rob, it's Guido. Guido is fine.
Yep.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Just wanted to add, maybe ask a couple of questions too. I think the idea of streamlining the process by using software is an excellent one, especially if the owners are content to do that. So kudos to you for implementing that. There was a comment on the road. So I have to ask you, the taxes. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. There was a comment on the road issues in the neighborhood due to the number of people that have been using the roads. And I was wanting to ask, the taxes that are received from short-term rentals, what proportion of that actually goes back into the neighborhood for things like maintaining the roads?
Okay, so this is Gail. Generally, with the transient room tax, 70% of what we collect is required to go back into tourism-related promotional uses. And then the remaining 30%, the county is able to use for more discretionary projects. With regard to your specific question of what that exact dollar amount is, or what exact percentage of that 30% is going back into road repairs, that would be something that I would have to check with the road department and budget and finance, and then we can send that information out to everyone.
Gail,
Thank you very much.
Gail, I'm on the call if you would like me to respond to that.
Yes,
So,
I would.
So in regards to the 30% that is discretionary, the 30% that the board had dedicated to go towards this public road and drainage improvements, primarily in the Falcon Cove, Arch Cape area, is 30% of the, it's now the 2.5% increase. And so on average, it's about $60,000 a year that gets collected to go towards the road improvement.
Thank you, Ms. Monica, for that. Now, my understanding is that Cove Beach has its own group of people that take care of the roads. Do they actually receive this money, or does this money go somewhere else?
No, this money is work that is done by the roads department. The roads department is only allowed to pay for equipment and salaries for work that is done on county roads. Since these aren't county roads, this work is being done by county employees using county resources, but getting reimbursed through these funds. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much. And then the third question that I have for you is, are there any penalties for false reporting?
Not, this is Rob. To my knowledge, there are no penalties in place for false reporting. There's misuse of 911, but I don't get 911 calls. But to my knowledge, code compliance has no penalties for false reporting.
Okay,
And
thank you very
much. Was your question related to false reporting of complaints or false reporting of transient room tax funds?
No, it's false reporting of complaints. So in other words, if there's a particular property that receives a number of successive complaints, and those complaints happen not to be true, is there a way to apply penalties as well? Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Is Jeff Stir on the call today?
Yes, I am. Thank you. First of all, I want to appreciate the opportunity to get the information about short-term rentals, and also have this ability for communication between neighbors and county officials that are maybe dealing with this issue. I guess I should first say that we've been owners in the Cove since 2003 and rebuilt a cabin in 2005. We happen to have 5 rentals within 300 feet of us, all around us. 4 of those, I believe, are short-term, one's long-term. And thankfully, I can say that we have never had an issue with any of those rentals around us. Of course, there's always the occasional, perhaps, canister that's been tipped over in wind. But being neighbors and neighborly, we'll certainly pick that stuff up. It usually tends to happen once the canister is empty and therefore lighter. But as I'd said, that's been the rare situation. We also have been fortunate not to deal with any noise issues around us. So feel thankful for that. And Nancy had already testified here, and it was good to hear from her. She's been a very responsible landlord next to us. And as I said, we haven't ever had an issue, and we know that if we did, we could go directly to Nancy to solve that. So all in all, I want to report that we're feeling well cared for, I guess, in this situation. I think it's unfortunate if there is a property that might be causing some problems. So hopefully those can be dealt with between owners directly. Insofar as roads, I was maybe a little bit surprised by that comment, although I do believe on the Tillamook side there are some roads that do need to be resurfaced, asphalted roads. I have to give kudos to the group that manages the gravel roads on the Clatsop side. I think they've done quite an outstanding job for a volunteer effort. The thing I guess I would have the most concern about, and maybe has come up in the past, is just, this is a separate issue, but it's the dark skies efforts maybe that some people have talked about outside of this forum. And I think that rentals maybe do have a tendency to keep lights on or keep paths well lit for obvious reason. But if renters could be careful, or if landlords could be explicit with renters that if they could get lights turned off, you know, by shortly after dark, if they're not in and out of the house, that would be much appreciated. So all in all, the only other reason I wanted to really listen in today is that I would be very concerned, although we're not renting our place, I would be concerned with any efforts to limit short-term rentals or the number of short-term rentals. And if there is an effort of that, I mean, I would hope that the county would be upfront about that effort and involve as many people as possible in any kind of planning in that area. And if licenses are to be limited, then I think that some equitable solution would have to be offered or tended in this situation, just so that those who aren't renting now, if they needed to or wanted to do in the future, that they would have equal access to those rentals. That would be my biggest concern. And then Rob, two questions. One, Nancy, I think kind of covered in hers, was how many complaints. Could you say how many complaints are in Falcon Cove specifically, or is that something that gets tracked? And then I guess it would be how many of those complaints are widespread amongst all the rentals, or is it a particular problem rental? Just to try to get a better sense of the scope of the issue here. As I said, we've been there for 15 years and really haven't seen much of an issue or a problem with short-term rentals, happily. So thank you very much.
Sure. How many, I'm just reading the question that Gail typed down. How many STR complaints in Falcon Cove? I receive complaints in regards to short-term rentals throughout the county. The majority of short-term rentals in the county are in the Arch Cape and Falcon Cove area. So they make up the bulk of my short-term rental complaints. How many of those complaints are widespread between rentals, or is it one or two problem rentals? I would say that the majority of rentals I don't hear about. There is a handful that I deal with commonly.
Any sense, Rob, of the 100 complaints that you received countywide, what percentage are in the Falcon Cove area?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay. Is that something that would get tracked in the future with automated system?
Yeah, my understanding is of the third-party software is they will they'll be able to identify we can identify the location of complaints. I just don't have that off the top of my head. But yeah, the third-party software will be able to locate complaints and report areas, I suppose.
Yeah, I wanted to get 3 of your 2-fish orders
The
for a pickup at 12:30.
Nancy, you're live.
You can order for the group if you like.
Nancy, you're live.
Oh, it says mute, but how many want fish and chips? So,
All right, we'll move to the next registrant. Is Reba Owen on the call today? Reba Owen.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Reba,
Yes,
we can hear you.
I still feel it's like a Saturday Night Live skit. Okay, my cabin is in Cove Beach. We have had that cabin since the late 1940s, so we're pretty elderly, and we've seen it all. I personally am very alarmed about the increase in short-term rentals because of some of the things that you already have listed: noise, garbage, parking, over occupancy, trespassing, and to add a few extras: dogs, fires on the beach, fires in yards, uh, open sewage flowing down the street across from our cabin, which has happened for years, and allegedly when it became more of a rental, they fixed the septic system. I don't think it's fixed to carry the number of people using their bathroom facilities. It's very upsetting when it used to be a beautiful, quiet, pristine area, and it's really, we might as well just have hotels here if we're going to go that route. I don't know what the solution is. I feel bad that we should be having to call somebody about these things. I'm a little uncomfortable about videoing somebody or taping somebody without their permission. I don't know if that's legal, but I understand that compliance people have to have proof of complaints. So I don't know what the answer is. I do know that one thing that's easy to track is the number of cars. If you have one off-street parking place and you have 5 cars, and some of those parked in front of my property, in my parking place, that's a problem, and that's an easy problem to follow up on. I don't know what the answer is, but this beach, this beautiful beach, is a lot different than it was in 1940. There's nothing that can be done about that. I hope that there can be some kind of restrictions. For me, I would like it if there were no vacation rentals whatsoever in that area. It's just too fragile an area. The water system, the septic systems, nothing it has been built up to put up with that. Frankly, my brother and I would like the roads to be in the worst condition possible so that no more people could drive down there easily. But that's beside the point. Just in closing, I would like to say the other thing I've viewed in my 70 years there is some very dangerous situations. You all know that 2 children died there a few months ago. Myself, I've witnessed another near miss where a person had his young children playing down by the heavy surf. And then my neighbor also had to pull a mother and a child out last month, who the mother was dangling her child over the surf on the rocks and got knocked down and almost pulled out again. The bottom line is people come from the out of the area generally. They know nothing about how dangerous the beach is, how dangerous the surf is. And again, that's not a compliance issue, but that's an overall human issue that I think has increased dramatically. Besides, we used to have driftwood. People would stand on the logs. They thought that was fun. But now the surf is the real issue. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you for letting me have my speech. I'll try to get off of here.
Thank you, Reba. Next registrant is Beth Radich on the call today. Beth Radich. Okay. Next registrant is Carolyn Crawford on the call today. Carolyn Crawford.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Carolyn.
My comments are basically, I appreciate the time for the meeting, would like more organization with short-term rentals so that we can have better communication. I did write in and ask if we could get a list of owners of short-term rentals so that we all knew who each other, who everyone is. I have had my house since 1986 down there, and I think most of us that are owners down there love the Cove. As Reba said, it's a very precious place to us all. Most of us are really trying to obey, as Nancy said. I have signs posted in my home. I limit the number of people in my home to 4. I limit the number of water. I make sure that I call them and let them know. And we really try to make sure the lights are turned off at night. There's a sign right by the door that says that. So I think most of us are complying, not so much out of regard for the rules as much for respect for our neighbors. And I don't want to see, once again, it's a few bad apples sort of ruin for the whole bunch. It would be nice to have a communication between short-term rentals so that we can cooperate with one another and make sure everything is good. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I am thankful for this meeting so that we have a voice to a soundboard for this. And thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Carolyn. Is Leslie Smith on the call today? Leslie Smith. Is Dale Major on the call today? Dale Major.
Okay, yes.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, Dale, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I have to agree with everything that people have to say about short-time rentals as far as the inconvenience in a residential area. I think it destroys a residential area. However, there needs to be a solution, and I think one solution would be for the county to require an on-site host or hostess 24/7 when they have clients there. That way, the clients can be guided to the various aspects of the community and the safety on the beach. It's a simple requirement. Just have a host there. Motels do, hotels do, and bed and breakfast do. So why not a short-time rental? And everybody else has covered everything that I would have covered. So thank you very much for the time.
All right, thank you, Dale. Vivian, did you want to also speak or?
Yes, I did.
All right.
Okay. I've been asked to provide historical perspective, probably because I have the gray hair, and like Reba has been around the beach for a long time. I've been a long time part-time resident. And all my comments actually are in a letter that will be sent to the county. So maybe somebody won't have to record it. I'd like to talk about impacts that are generally not reportable to the county. So you're not going to get this in code enforcement or to the county sheriff. First, I want to give a historical perspective. There have always been summer residents or summer visitors at Cove Beach. And very importantly, local residents have always looked out for them. Last century, before short-term rentals came into being, many families would rent a cabin or camp on somebody's undeveloped land for long periods of time, and others came down for a long weekend. These people often came back year after year. We thought of these people as part-time residents rather than tourists. Most of them were escaping the heat of the Willamette Valley or Eastern Oregon. So they were aware of the coastal hazards because they'd been here before or they were living in Oregon. They knew about rip currents, they knew about sneaker waves, wild surf, and rolling logs. They also generally followed the unwritten courtesies of sharing a neighborhood with the other people. They were turning the lights out at night. They knew that they needed to not have big parties unless we were all invited. They knew that they had to be vigilant about wildfires because the Tillamook burn was still very alive in people's minds. They knew they needed to douse their campfire at the beach. They knew that they weren't supposed to pick all the blackberries, and if something went wrong, they needed to pitch in. These things don't happen now. But in return, what we did is we welcomed them, we watched out for them, and if problems arose, we helped. Besides the usual mishaps of dogs getting lost, there were really some very serious situations that happened that Reba touched on, such as kids getting caught in the surf, beach walkers stuck on sandbars, surfers caught on rocks, people standing on logs that then rolled. And there are plenty of stories about successful rescues, but unfortunately, there's also numerous stories about unsuccessful rescues when people actually drowned. So what's really different now? And we've spent a lot of time trying to think about why is it not working the way it used to? Well, first of all, we didn't used to be inundated with new people every single day. Now, year-round, we have literally hundreds of people staying here, many from out of state, with no inkling of the coastal hazards or the community norms. Second, as Dale mentioned back then, the cabin or property owners were on site. They knew their guests. If guests were behaving badly, they took care of the situation. Now the homeowner lives in another state, the property management company isn't open on weekends, the contact person does not respond to calls. We know that code enforcement doesn't work on weekends, and frankly, calling the county sheriff for nuisance infraction seems an inappropriate use of their limited resources. For the third comment I'd like to make, let me address the rental owners directly. We take care of your customers. As de facto hosts, we welcome them, we inform, we look out for, and help your renters. When they're locked out, when their cell phone doesn't work, they have no reception, when their dog's lost, when the electricity goes off, we're the ones they ask for help. They don't call you or your manager. They see us next door. So as on-site hosts, we also let them know when they're parked on somebody else's property or blocking the roadway, or their campfire is in the wrong place. It's above the high water mark. And we also ask them to leash their dogs. But most significantly, we try to keep your renters safe. This is something we can't call somebody else to do. There's no time. We've endangered ourselves by grabbing them off the beach during high tides in the winter. We've pointed out what rip currents look like. We've also shown them the evacuation routes because while the information is posted, they haven't looked at it. We've told them about crab holes and sneaker waves, and we've mentioned it's not a good idea to let little kids play in the water while parents watch them from about 100 feet away. The Pacific Ocean is not a lake. We've stopped people shooting off fireworks. We've kind of threatened people that they really are going to be causing wildfires if they continue to have campfires in non-designated places. We've even, in the middle of the night, knocked on doors to let them know that NOAA has given a tsunami warning and that we're under tsunami warning. We search for lost children. You folks, as the short-term rental owners, don't do any of that because you're not here. And then those visitors leave after 2 to 3 days, and your next batch shows up. And we do it again and again and again. Your customers are delighted with their experience. They write you great reviews, and you get a bigger client base. All we get is more tired. You're taking advantage of our hospitality. We feel like we're being used. So when we complain about short-term rentals, then we're accused of taking away livelihoods, harassing guests, and trying to lock up Cove Beach for our own personal use. That's not true. But the proliferation of short-term rentals in Cove Beach has truly been a detriment to our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. I just got a message. It looks like Beth is on the call. Beth, are you on the call? I don't hear Beth. On to Amber Geiger. Amber?
Hi, this is Amber Geiger. I'm on the call. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you for this community-wide meeting, and thank you, Rob and Gail, for your diligence. We have lived in the community for over 10 years and started short-term renting our cabin a few years back. We agree that short-term renters must respect the neighborhood, and owners need to communicate the county rules diligently. We personally have signs in the home about parking, quiet hours, lights out at night, and ocean safety. We also check in with our neighbors regularly about if there have been any issues and keep an open line of communication. I hope that as neighbors, we can work together as a community to remedy the issues together. My concern is that the complaints are being instigated by specific people in the neighborhood, and possibly the Falcon Cove Water District as well, in a campaign to both limit the rights of property owners' ability to short-term rental their properties, even though they have approved county permits, as well as limit access to fellow Oregonians to our public beaches. Especially in a time of greater awareness of inequality, this is disappointing to see. The Oregon coast is for everyone, not just the few who have enough money to buy their homes there. We rented personally in Falcon Cove for many years, for every birthday, for every anniversary, before we purchased 10 years ago. And lastly, regarding the comments by the water board that transient rentals are the largest users of our water, it is inaccurate. The data shows that many full-time residents, those on the board and connected to the board, are actually some of the largest users. The board has refused to be transparent with the community about that data in an effort to promote their agendas, including now what seems to be attempting to limit short-term rentals. So again, I'm concerned this is a campaign to limit the rights of property owners as well as limit access to fellow Oregonians to our beautiful public beaches that we all have rights to. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Next caller, or registrant rather, is Ted Morgan. Is Ted Morgan on the call today?
I am.
Thank you, Ted. We can hear you.
Hey, thank you for your time. And thank you for all of the faces who are bold enough to use their video camera. It's good to see some familiar faces. As mentioned, we've been coming to the beach for about 20 years now. We fell in love with each other and with the Cove by renting the Marlene house and Vivi Tallman's house and Nancy Chase's home over those many years. And when looking at property records, there was no way that a modest family like ours could afford a big, beautiful home like many of the ones that are down there. But we were fortunate enough to come across our small little 500 square foot cabin. And we are so blessed that we were able to get that. When we purchased that property, we created a charter or a vision for that property. And that was, we wanted to share it. We wanted to share the beauty of this community that we had come to love and see with our friends and our family. And so we've been living that out. But it's irresponsible for us to do that in ways that I'm hearing many of my fellow neighbors complain about. So we put measures into place to make sure that not only we're following the laws, but we're following the unwritten laws of being a good neighbor. On a regular basis, we reach out to our neighbors to say, make sure that they have our contact information and make sure that they feel open and willing to share their complaints if there ever has been one. Fortunately, this was backed up by a call to the county recently. We have fortunate to never face some of these issues that some of my neighbors are complaining about. And so we feel fortunate. Ours is a relatively small cabin, and we vet all of our guests who come in there to make sure that nobody is using it for purposes that would go against how we want the cabin to be used. And plus, built in with our management system is a self-policing piece. If we are to hear a complaint ever, and we have had a couple complaints just of how they've left our property, we can essentially blackball them by giving them a negative review. We won't rent to people with any negative reviews, and nor will we rent to anybody who has 0 reviews at all. We follow that up with distinct communication, not only at our cabin, but in writing, leading up to all rentals, to make sure that they are aware of the community that they are coming into. And this is a special place and not a place to party. So if they're choosing to party, we always direct them to other locations in Cannon Beach and Manzanita, because we like our peace and quiet as well. A part of being a good neighbor is also contributing to the road fund, contributing to environmental restoration, beach cleanups, and unfortunately assisting parents who just lost their children. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, we were there during the King Tide incident with the small family that had the unspeakable tragedy. We are there in good times and bad. We go to memorial services for our neighbors that have passed away, and we've hosted many of you. I know Vivian and Dale came to the big party we had on Cove Beach Road. It was fun to have them and several of our neighbors there. So I guess in conclusion, I think if we can work as a community, weed out the bad apples, as somebody mentioned, but also embrace what we have together, I think we can work better as a community rather than necessarily enforcing more political elements. But at the same time, I do appreciate having rules in place for the short-term rentals. It really provides us clear understanding of what the goals and objectives of maintaining community should be. And lastly, I have one last question, and I'll go offline, is in the complaint system, I'm wondering if we can make sure that a name is associated with the complaint. This way we can create dialogue between owners and the complainant. This way, again, to create that dialogue together. Otherwise, it creates a disincentive or maybe an incentive to file complaints that may be dubious. But more importantly, it's about creating conversation. So thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the platform, and I really appreciate you all creating this this call-in. Thank you.
Thank you. The next caller, I believe she's left the call, but is Erin Living Good still on the call? I believe she left.
And Rob, I think Beth has now identified herself as caller 10.
Okay. Beth, are you able to join us?
Can you guys hear me, Rob?
Beth, I can hear you now.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Good.
Good. Well, thank you for hosting the meeting. It's a really important topic. It's been great to listen to the variety of experiences and opinions. For example, it's so interesting that the two Jeffs who literally live, well, one lives here full time and one has been coming here for a lot longer, can have such different experiences. And I think sometimes that speaks to the day-to-day life of being a resident and seeing, you know, different things at different times, but both really valuable experiences. I don't think I have a ton of different things to say other than the impacts of the increase in numbers of people, particularly in the larger houses. I think they really kind of exceed the capacity of some of the things that maybe Vivian and Reba and even Ted and Nancy spoke to in terms of, just call me up and I'll fix it. Really we're dealing with a lot more commercial entities, the bigger, more remote vacation rental companies that aren't accessible or don't have very local property managers. I think Vivian and Dale really hit it on the head. We're talking about absentee owners that aren't responsive and aren't available and don't really have community experience. And that's really changing that dynamic of being able to just pick up the phone or walk outside and say, hey, can you knock it off? Or did you know? Or whatever. So it's past that point. It's really gotten to a much bigger tipping point. And I think that really has to do with the group size and the volume, as well as the market increase in numbers of rental homes, so that there are no limits to that. I totally hear what Jeff Storer said too, in terms of how those licenses are equitably afforded. Not just first come, first serve, but right now there's nothing happening there, and they're just rapidly and exponentially increasing. We've seen them double in the last few years. And I know, Rob, you mentioned 20 homes, but this community is artificially split down the middle by county. We have more than 30 vacation rental homes in the community, and that does really impact everyone. So it's 30% higher than what you see or what you're dealing with in Clatsop County, but this community is dealing with, again, another 30% of that because of Tillamook County. So it's past the tipping point of calling up your neighbor. We do need a really good construct. The reporting of the experience of the violations and the impact to them is definitely hitting the residents the hardest. The reporting of it as well. So, it's confusing, it's unclear. We're reporting and trying to learn about it with the goal of education and to keep the livability in the community, but we're not seeing the results. And I know your team is trying, and when we see that you're trying to fix cesspits and pick up buildings that are knocked over, but you're also signing up and being responsible for making sure people aren't blocking the street or don't have 15 people in a house versus 10, we're really feeling that you're where we're prioritized. And we're definitely not seeing the violations stop. And we're really experiencing them on the increase. So we're really hoping that this meeting and any technology that you're employing, but as well as really, I think it's a people, a manpower, a human power, a woman power, whatever you want to say, resource issue in terms of the enforcement. In talking to other property managers and other communities, they're shocked to hear that someone can have multiple violations and continue them and not have a penalty. Basically, we're hearing, if you have a verified violation, you get a warning. You have a second verified violation, you get a penalty. You get a third verified violation, you're out. I mean, it just seems to be the way a lot of communities have had to deal with this. So I think understanding a little bit better about what that process is and making the reporting process and verification process much more straightforward and consistent would be really helpful. I really think that we need to have some investment on the rental policy. Our community really hasn't had any input or voice to it. For example, how does Arch Cape have different rules than us, and why? I think that a resident in a community should really be able to have a voice and have meaningful input to what that policy looks like. We're just really treating this community like a hotel zone versus a residential community, and we're seeing that by group size and number of cars, etc. So we're really feeling those impacts. It was really important for me to hear from the sheriff. You know, we're being asked to call the sheriff for violations. It's something none of us want to do. We feel really conflicted about that. You know, we want to call the sheriff for law enforcement issues, not for a vacation renter trespassing on property around them, or, you know, late night noise violations. That should be the owner who's dealing with that. That burden needs to go back to the owner, and I really think it has a lot to do with the absenteeism of the owners and the third-party managers that just aren't taking the permit conditions to heart, and they're not enforcing them themselves, leaving the neighborhood and your team to have to try to enforce it. And it's really tough to fix issues versus to prevent them. So we'd really like to see more teeth and more emphasis be put on prevention, and then much more rapid enforcement and penalties for repeat violations. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. The next caller is Brian Lippy. Brian, are you on the call today? Brian Lippy. Next registrant would be Erica Antoinette. Erica, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm right here.
Hi,
Hi guys.
Hello.
I'm Erica, and this is my husband Joe. We are now full-time residents here. However, we have rented our cute, adorable cottage in the past. So we've seen both sides. We understand both sides. But I didn't quite understand or feel the impact until I moved here full-time, what short-term rentals do to our neighborhood. We have numerous times had noise issues with one particular large house that is managed by an outside company they're in Lincoln City or Bend. So this has happened over and over, weekend after weekend, large groups partying and keeping us up at night. We've called the police once, which, like Beth said, I don't feel comfortable calling the police for a noise complaint, but it got so bad that we did. I filed a complaint through the county. We've spoke with them, and it continues to happen. So it's almost like little boy, you know, what is it? Little boy peep, blow, whatever the nursery rhyme. But I just feel like we're not being heard, and I also feel I'm having to play police when, you know, by talking to them. And other issues that I've experienced, or we both have experienced a lot, is fires on the rocks, so right below the houses. A lot of the vacation rental people will come in and build fires, and that puts us, our neighborhood, at, you know, brings hazard to that because it's right below a house and there's all the driftwood. And so we are, again, playing police there, asking them and informing them, you know, our rules and that we live here full time and that we want to protect this sacred place because as you guys all know, if you live here full time or not, this is a very, very sacred, special place. I grew up here on the coast, a little bit north, and there is nowhere that compares to this. So we are blessed, all of us, if we live here full time or we visit. And for the visitors that come in, this is like such a gift to be able to visit this place. But again, now living here full time, we are seeing the impact through things that have already been mentioned, such as trash. I walk down and I'll have cigarette butts at the end of my driveway or trash left behind. The big groups, the noise, the dogs They will bring dogs in that bark and create a lot of noise as well. What other few things? Oh, and then one other issue that or kind of concern of mine is I'm a yoga teacher. I teach meditation, and I wanted to bring in small groups, maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, and teach private yoga here. I contacted the county on this, and they had informed me this is a residential neighborhood. There is no businesses allowed. Okay, well, I'll continue to teach online then. However, what doesn't seem right or fair, these short-term rentals are businesses, right? Managed outside or not. These are businesses within a residential area. So I'm not sure how that is okay when I can't even teach yoga, have one person come onto my property. That would have quite a less impact on our resources than bringing in a group of 10, 13 that I see every weekend. And I want to say that we do have another rental close by, and I've had many issues, and minor issues. I haven't reported them to the county, but I have to call them at least, once every couple weeks. Hey guys, this is happening. They're very responsive. I love them to death, but again, it's exhausting. I want to live here. This is a peaceful place. I don't want to have to manage my neighbor's vacation rental. And that's what I feel like I'm doing. That being said, I, again, am grateful for the opportunity to speak, that everybody is willing to do their part best they can. But I do really, really pray and hope that the county can step in and help save and preserve our neighborhood. Because when we're here full time, it's a different vibe. It creates, it's hard to explain, but it feels like Beth said, it's more like a hotel zone. I feel like I'm living in the center of Cannon Beach during the summer sometimes. So, and Joe wanted to say a few words as well.
Yeah. First off, just thanks for the opportunity and setting up this forum. I think obviously this is the best way for us to come together and move forward by having good dialogue and, hosting this call. It gives us the right forum to be able to share this. So thanks for setting that up. I would agree with a lot of the complaints that have been mentioned so far. There's noise, garbage, parking, over occupancy, even just simple things like people loading up a pickup truck full of rocks from the beach. There's plenty of rocks down there, but if that becomes the norm, it's just not what we want to see. And I think it just comes down to a lack of respect for the community.
Yeah.
And whether it's in the surf and the lineup, which is a different issue, having respect for this community. It's a beautiful place. There's a small amount of people that live here full time. And when people say that our solution is to kind of push the responsibility to the full-time residents, it's just not how it should be.
We hope that it doesn't continue to be that way.
Yeah, because, when it comes, by the time a noise violation comes after 10 o'clock, the last thing I want to be doing is getting up, walking over, knocking on some people's doors who sometimes are receptive, but honestly, a lot of times are not. They don't want to hear from you. They're partying. Sometimes they're drunk. It's not a situation that I want to be able to or have to take the responsibility for other people's homes. And so, just as a summary, we would be in support of implementing some restrictions on rentals. I don't think unlimited rentals is set up. I don't think our infrastructure here is set up to handle that. And, so we would definitely be in form of some sort of restrictions to the amount of rentals, and as well as education and all the other positive ways to create better behavior by the renters.
And can I say one last thing? I actually agree with Dale and Viviane about having a host on property on site. I know Tofino, which is also a beautiful beach community, in order to have a short-term rental, you have to have a host on site. And then also, we used to live in Lake Oswego, and they had no short-term rentals for a long time for many of these reasons. Recently, they approved it. However, it has to be your full-time home. You can't just keep buying these investment properties to rent out. So that might also be a nice solution if it is someone's full-time rather than using it as a business, which this neighborhood isn't zoned as commercial or business. So again, thank you. And we are grateful to live here, and we're grateful to have awesome neighbors. Everybody who lives here full time, we have such a awesome community. So thank you.
Yeah, and let's just make the right steps for the long-term vision. I think that's the thing, is this is one of the last untouched places on the Oregon coast, and that's why we live here. There's not convenience stores, there's not traffic lights, and not that short-term rentals is going to change that, but it is a pristine place, and we want to make sure that it will continue to stay like that for the long term.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica and Joe. Appreciate those comments. Is Lisa Glenn on the call today? Lisa Glenn? Lisa Glenn? Next registrant is Elise Shoup on the call. Elise Shoup?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, is this Elise?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I wrote something, but most of it would just be a repeat. Many have said, so I'll just say briefly, Beach as a year-round resident, short after she was widowed in 1971. She lived there, she died. It was so pristine, all the things that everyone knows it is, and most of the other residents were second homes for people. Given that a lot of people in this day and age can't afford a primary home, it's understandable, and it seems almost elitist to say that rentals are not allowed. But at the same time, are not like Ada and Cannon Beach. We do not, the community, receive money directly from rental permits, as far as I can tell. We also don't have retail businesses to support. I appreciate the landlord or renter who said that he is very explicit about the fact that anyone who there should be coming there to appreciate the solitude and the quiet of the beach. If they want to party, have a bachelorette party or whatever, they should go somewhere else. And although I appreciate Nancy saying that we can go and talk to her renters directly if there's a problem, this is very difficult. I have personally approached people on our beach before, picking up their garbage in front of them that they were going to leave there and handing it to them, and they weren't pleased. It sort of feels like a confrontation, even if you know you're in the right. So I agree with the people who say there should be a host on site. At the very least, all rentals need to have the name and the phone number of that person or someone local posted outside of their house. This is for the safety of the renters as well as for the neighbors. And back to the issue, I'm a little confused because we as residents are being asked every year to donate to the road fund, but it's my understanding that these are county roads. And as far as I can tell, the two beach accesses at the south end of the beach were built and installed entirely by a property owner voluntarily. Obviously, the renters use these roads and accesses, and I don't, if there was some way to make sure that the money that's collected from these permits actually goes back into the community for things that help the community, I think it would be nice. And basically, and all the water that's used, I mean, we do just have a limited amount of water. In addition to that, when it goes into the septic and overfills the drain fields, then it goes someplace else, and it does things like push the property out from underneath my mom's house, which is now gone.
So I think our focus should be to support the community, the real estate agents, developers, people who want to turn their property for a profit, or people who just want to make a profit off of their properties are really not our community. So that's it. We should be able to maintain the natural beauty, the safety, and the environment that is Cove Beach Falcon Cove. It's a small paradise. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. Appreciate those comments. I got a message from Lisa Glenn that she is on the call. Lisa, are you able to join us? Gail, she might be having a hard time unmuting.
Can you hear me now?
Lisa, I can hear you. Yes.
Yes. Hi. Thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody for their feedback, and this is how we make great partnerships. I do work for Turnkey Vacation Rentals. We have a couple homes in the area, and it's important to us to make sure that we're doing what we can to make everything as smooth as possible. And we recognize that sometimes guests don't always cooperate with that. We just want to let everybody know, please do keep contacting us. We do work on it in the back end. In our case, our 800 number is the best place to reach us. And that way you have a team of people working on getting a hold of the guest. And I just wanted to thank everybody again. I'm writing down comments, and I do hope that this is going to be shared with everybody afterwards so I can review them with the rest of the company and help make things better.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate those. Next registrant is Catherine May. Catherine, are you on the call today? Catherine, are you on the call today? Oh, I think I see her talking. Let's see if we can get her unmuted. It looks like you're unmuted on my end. Gail, can you see better?
I can only just tell what's on my end, so.
Okay. Having some audio trouble with Kathy. Kathy, we'll come back to you before we leave the public comment period, all right? Is Patrick Chapman on the call today? Patrick?
Yes, can you hear me?
Patrick, I can hear you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for this format. It's really great as a new community member to hear from people and see some of the faces that I know and do not know. I am a new, mostly full-time member of Falcon Cove. I live very south end Ray Brown Road. And, you know, it's really interesting to hear Reba's historical perspective. We all know this is a special place and we want to preserve it and love it and cherish it. And I also want my friends to be able to rent my neighboring houses, to tell you the truth. So there has to be like a way that everyone can be kind of work together. Perhaps people who own short-term rentals could partner with one of their neighbors who is here a majority of the time and to help be a contact person for them. Nancy has done a great job at that with me, where she has people there for a full month and they have my number and know where I live and can come ask me questions. And it has created a really great opportunity to connect with people in that way. It seems as though some of the houses with the majority of the complaints, there should be a way to enforce those, and with a kind of a 3-strike you're out policy, and then their permit gets removed. And that seems harsh, but it is a reality. I mean, there are late night parties here and I'm not even, the only time I am not here is the weekends. I'm here during the week, and then I leave for the weekend. So I miss a lot of the chaos in the summertime, which is great for me, but it sucks for people who are here. One thing that has not been mentioned is speeding. And I think that's an important issue where people who don't know the area do drive fast around here. It would be really nice for the county to put up some official 20-mile-per-hour speed limit signs. There are lots of unofficial 10-mile-per-hour speed limits, which is ridiculous to ask people to drive 10 miles per hour. I think the roads around here on the south end of Clatsop County are 20, but I'm unsure because there's no postings. I think in general, people just don't like change. And as a new member of the community, I have had people who are full-time here not be nice to me for no good reason. And it's just simply because I'm new, I think. And I think there's got to be a good way for us to like communicate better with each other as neighbors full-time or the property owners themselves. So thank you for the format. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Patrick. There's two people that weren't able to speak. I'll just circle back to those two people really briefly. Alan Solares, are you on the call? Alan? And then Kathy May, were you able to get your audio? Kathy? I don't hear either Alan or Kathy.
And Rob, also Charles Dice would like to speak. He typed into the chat box a while ago.
All right. Charles, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Charles, we can hear you.
So I'll probably repeat a few of the things that everybody else has said, but I won't dwell on them. I've lived here for 20 years. We moved to this part of the world on purpose because the area is such a beautiful, tranquil place to live. And as part of my due diligence, I did check out to make sure that this was a zone for residential use, which it was, coastal residential. So based on that zoning is a large part of why we decided to build our home here. So we live here full time. We're one of the few full-time residents. As I said, I've been here 20 years. I've been very involved in the community. I'm on the water board and the road committee and a number of other organizations, including 15 years on Canada Beach Fire as a volunteer. And over the 20 years, we've seen an awful lot of changes, especially in the last 10 years with respect to short-term rentals. And they have not been for the better. So the water system here and the roads here were never designed for this kind of intense traffic and transient occupation that we're seeing with the short-term rentals. All of the roads in our community, at least in the Clatsop County portion of Falcon Cove Beach, are public roads. They are not county roads, which means the county does not maintain those roads. The road committee is a volunteer organization that does maintain the roads. And we have a lot of people, the transient short-term people, who, as already been noted, don't particularly respect the fact that parking is a big issue and that people park on the roads, and that makes it unsafe for a lot of the residents who want to go back and forth and don't have room sometimes, especially down towards the south end of the community. And it would be very difficult for the fire engines to get by, or impossible for the fire engines to get by. And as somebody who drove fire engines here, I can tell you that for a fact. So back to the comment from the sheriff's department, we would absolutely like to see no parking signs go up down here. And I would like to hear back from Gail or someone at the county as to how we go about getting no parking signs put in place.
Okay, that would go through Public Works, and we as staff here on our end at Community Development, we can reach out to Public Works and see about how we can get that initiated.
Perfect. So I also wanted to drill in just a little bit on, I think, the primary reason for the conference call being set up today, which had to do with the complaint procedure. I know I have been certainly frustrated with the complaint procedure. I've heard from a number of other people in the community who've been also frustrated by it. We take the time and the trouble to fill out a written and signed complaint about things that need complaining about and send them into the county. And oftentimes it just seems like it goes into the dead letter office. There's not an acknowledgement that the complaint was filed. There's not a follow-up with what happened in response to that complaint. So I really feel like if for the complaint procedure to be fair, equitable, and productive, that for the people that do fill it out, sign it, send it in, they need to be kept appraised of what action was taken and how that complaint was eventually resolved. And to the extent that the complaint is not resolved to the satisfaction of the complainer, then that complaint really needs to be logged into the county system so that at the end of 3 complaints, the short-term rental permit is revoked the way it says in the ordinance. And I don't see that happening either. I know there has been at least 1 or 2 properties I personally have complained about more than 3 times in a year, and no short-term rental permit was ever revoked. So those are the key issues. As has been noted, we've got 95 homes here, and out of the 95 in our water district, so in the community between Clatsop County and Tillamook County, and out of those 95 homes, over 30 of them are now short-term rentals. That is really out of proportion to what I've seen in many other places in the country, where they're dealing with these same issues, and where a lot of the other jurisdictions have put caps on the number of short-term rentals just to prevent what we are seeing here in our community, which is the residents just being totally overrun by the short-term rentals. So I think I'll end with that.
Thank you, Charles. Monica, I think Monica wanted to provide comments. Monica Steele.
Sorry, I had to find my mic. I just, in regards to the speed limit signs, it is something that, since it is not a county road, the county can't post speed limit signs on there. What people can do, and that's something that you would want to have done collectively so that the speed limits aren't varying all over the place, but you can get a right-of-way permit, or a permit so that you can post something in the right-of-way, such as a speed limit sign. It's not something that would be enforced by the county. It would just be something that you would be encouraging people to do. But that's I just wanted to comment that since it's not a county road, it's not something that we would be posting. You could also do the same thing with in instances where you might be having parking issues. Again, you can get a right-of-way permit to have a no parking sign posted in that area.
Thank you, Monica. Kathy, I know you're here. I'm going to give you one more chance to get in on the fun. Kathy, May, are you able to join us? I don't hear you. It's okay. You can still provide comment. We're going to get to comments are going to be open for a while. So those are all the people that I have as pre-registered. Gail, you wanted to talk a little bit about the next steps before we close?
Yeah, so as I talked about at the beginning of the meeting, what we would like to do, is that Kathy?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hooray. First, I want to thank the county, Rob, you guys, everyone for putting this together. I think it's such a valuable tool to get us all together and working to try and resolve the issues that everyone's having. I've so been intrigued by all of the comments, both positive and negative, from both the all-time residents as well as the renters. We are renters. We love the vacation down there. We worship every minute that we get to come with our sons and spend down there. So for those of you that are full-time rent or full-time residents, realize that for those that get to go down and spend time in our cottage down there, you know, it is as valuable to our family to spend time down there as residents. It is our community too. We don't look at it as just a rental place. It is our heaven on earth. It is a place that we get to share with our sons and build our family memories and, you know, teach them about the environment and teach them about the ocean and everything that the Pacific Northwest has to offer. So just because we rent our home down there doesn't mean that we're not part of the community and that we don't want to respect every one of the all-time residents and keep the community strong and aid in making this right for all of the community members. To hit on a couple of the things that people have said, for those that have talked about having someone on site, like these aren't bed and breakfasts. That would be someone who has a bed and breakfast and is on site. We can't do that with our facility, our house. It is not, it doesn't have the ability to be full-time. The county, it is on a septic system. It is not, or not a septic tank.
It's rented full-time all the time.
It cannot, you cannot live there all time. Full-time.
It's full all the time.
It is not full all the time. It is not.
It is full all the time.
Okay, who is speaking?
Hey, Beth, nobody interrupted you when you spoke, so if you would let Kathy speak, please.
Yes, Kathy, go ahead.
And who was speaking right then?
Kathy, that was Beth. Go ahead.
Okay, Beth, it is not full-time. We keep it, we leave spots open every month. We can show the records to you. We keep it so that it's respectful. So that it is not rented all the time. We're not allowed to, and we have got all the records that show that. But it's also, you know, it's a 2-bedroom place. We're only allowed, we advertise, you know, 4 to 5 people with, you know, a child with a bunk bed. We try very hard to be respectful. We vet all of our clients, just like Ted does. We talk to them on the phone. It's not like we have them come in and rent online and never speak to them. When they rent, we talk to them multiple times before they get there. We inform them of the regulations and the codes around the house. We talk to them specifically about parking, about being respectful to the neighbors. We have a fantastic relationship with Caroline, and we, you know, we watch out for her. She watches out for us, and we would love to get to know the rest of the neighbors much, much better and be in line with what people want down there and what was going to make the community stronger. We welcome developing better relationships. For Erica, I think it's kind of ridiculous that you're not allowed to open a yoga. What a fantastic area to start a yoga clinic down there. That would be amazing. That kind of threw me when they said that you weren't allowed to have a small business down there to do yoga. It's a perfect place for that. When Beth was talking about, resources being wasted and, I agree wholeheartedly with the 3 strikes you're out and wasting resources. The problem that I see with that, though, is that, we've been reported more than once. In fact, we've probably been reported more than 3 times. However, with all of those, or the majority, all but one of those, has been false reporting. That was something that Guido had said, that when the county came out, it was a non-issue. It was not. It was, those kind of issues. And it wasn't noise. It wasn't over anything that has been big. It was little tiny things that a neighbor didn't like, or didn't think was up to her standards or their standards. And so those are issues too that on the opposite side need to be addressed. We pay to have our garbage brought in and out. We have strapping on it so the raccoons don't get in, and we don't allow pets so that we don't have barking to disturb or waste, not only barking, but waste products that could go into the neighbors' areas. We try very, very hard to be respectful to our community and to our neighbors. We have tried very hard to keep the property and increase our neighbors' property values. We don't allow fireworks. We don't allow fires. We have tried very hard to stay within all of the boundaries of the community. So when it comes to the violations and 3 strikes you're out, it's just as manipulative or waste of resources for reporting multi-false violations as it would be to have the 3 strikes you're out and have it be invalid. I think that if people are just willing to talk and be a group as a community should be, the precious resources and the precious community and the invaluable property that we have down there can be shared respectfully among all of us and for those people that we bring in. It doesn't have to be the full-time community against the renters down there. It can be a shared community. Just with everyone, the rules are rules, and we are definitely rule followers given the rules set in front of us, and we respect those community members around us. It would be fantastic. Like listening to Reba is heartwarming and at the same time heartbreaking, because when she had lived there and has lived so long there in her whole life, and having to see her precious community grow and things change, that's a hard thing to swallow. It's a hard pill to swallow when you see your community change, but it has, and it will continue to change. That's just kind of the growth of a country and a county, and it should be okay that we share this with people as long as it continues to be respectfully, and realizing that there are going to be some guests that will ignore what we ask them to do. And like Ted, if we hear that someone has disrespected our cottage or our neighbors, or have broken the rules that we set forth with them, they're not invited back. And we have a blacklist that we will never have people back. And our cleaner, our landscapers, they let us know if someone has abused the house or has abused the property or has been disrespectful to, in their opinion, to our neighborhood. And he lives just a short ways away, a mile or so away, and is readily there to take care of any issues that are a problem with our renters. I guess I'm kind of babbling on because I've listened to each of you, and I want to reply to each of you in both support and in opposition of full-time renters, and part-time renters. but I do think we can get through this. I think that everyone has solid points. I think that the people that are abusing it with the abundance of 10 and 12 people in a house that shouldn't have that many. I think that the late night partying should not, that is not a place. Our place, Falcon Cove, is not a place for partying. It is a place for peaceful, restful vacations, not for loud parties. I guess that's it. That's just our perspective. And we don't allow that in our home.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate those comments.
One more thing, Rob. Will
Yes.
you make this transcript available to all of us?
Gail can speak to that. She's
Absolutely.
gonna kind of, yeah.
And it's being recorded as well, so we'll have the recording up on the website.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Great. So the last two people that we're going to cut off with, they got in the chat. There's going to be Dana Cattell. Wanted to say a couple words, and then I believe Margie will be after that. Those are the last two. Dana. I don't hear Dana.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, Dana.
Great. Actually, it's Danya, and I own Starfish Vacation Rentals. Our first house that we ever owned was in Arch Cape, and we still own it. Although now I manage 35 homes in the area. And I just wanted, this has been a great forum, and I really appreciate you taking the initiative to put all this together. I've really appreciated hearing all of the comments and have made some notes. I feel like one of the more valuable comments has been the suggestion about having a local representative. One of the things, we actually manage one property.
She's talking, but I have been.
Hello?
Okay. So somebody needs to mute themselves.
Okay. Is that me?
I believe that's you, Joanne.
Well, I'm not even on the list. You just said there's nobody, and I can't seem to be able to get on. I'll mute.
Okay, thank you.
I was just saying that we manage one property there in Cove Beach, and one of the more valuable things, besides the fact that we have a very, very strong signage in the house, and we have a lot of contact with our guests prior to their arrival, we also try to meet face-to-face with the guests when they arrive. It's been a little more challenging with COVID. But we find that is one of the more effective ways to have our guests understand the rules. A lot of people don't read all of the information that we send out prior, but it also, I think, gives them more of a feel for the neighborhood. It's not just an entity that they're renting from. It's actually, they have some sort of rapport with the manager in this case, or if it was an owner that was able to meet with them. And I think that is a key piece that's missing now when you talk about how things used to be versus how they are now. I think it was Reba that was talking about how people used to come for longer periods of time. They came every summer and they got to know people in the neighborhood and in the community. And so they did themselves feel like they were part of that community. And I think having someone, if there is the opportunity to meet a renter when they arrive, kind of go over the community, the safety issues, the specifics of that house, can go a long way to preventing problems And then also one thing that we try to do is make sure that the neighbors know who we are. I'm just down the road. If there ever was an issue, I've never been aware of an issue at the house that we manage there in Cove Beach, but if there was, I'm 10 minutes away. And I do know that it would be uncomfortable, I think, in some instances for a neighbor to have to go up and approach someone who's renting, but for the manager to go and address that, I think is a more appropriate approach than requiring a neighbor to go do that. And I just wanted to mention those two things.
Thank you, Danya. Margie, are you on the call,
Yeah,
Margie?
I think Margie. Yeah, she is here. She did put some comments in the chat box. It says, hi there. She is entering her written comments because she has a sleeping baby. And she just wanted to take a moment to introduce her family as possibly the newest addition to the Falcon Cove community. They took ownership of their home this past week. We look forward to learning more about the community and being caring neighbors and thoughtful short-term rental property owners. We are so grateful for this incredible place and look forward to having the opportunity for our young daughters to grow up making memories in this magical place. We look forward to being in touch with neighbors and short-term rental property owners alike. Apologies for any typos, Margie and Jonathan Felix Lund.
Thank you, Margie. There was one other person that joined there. I'm not sure who that was. Was that Joanna?
Oh, that was Joanne Cornelius.
Joanne, do you want to provide comment? I don't hear you. If you do, Gail, do you want to provide?
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Oh, I kept pushing the button and nothing happened. Sorry to bother you.
Not a bother.
Anyway, thanks for everything. I won't take very much time because the Water District report on the area was excellent. Jeff Wiles was excellent. Jason's was. I've lived here for 48 years, full time, and seen an awful lot change and understand it all. And my husband was on the Water District for years, and I was on the Water District for 25 years or so. So a lot has happened, and water became an issue. But what it all seems to boil down to is that I remember when new people built a house here and asked for water to be delivered to their house. It was the requirement that our rules were single family dwellings. And it turns out that rentals are not necessarily single family dwellings because, as a lot of people have said on these calls, that in those years they were second homes, and now these, like somebody says, somebody owns 50 some rental homes. So it comes down to commercial. I was on the Tillamook Planning Commission for 8 years, and one of the requirements there was that single-family dwellings were for rural communities, and that's what we are, a rural community. No commercial activities were allowed in either in our community or on we would supply water to commercial activities, and that's what it seems to be happening now. It's all there are those who are paying attention to their rentals and they're taking good care of them, and they're talking about the people, talking to and knowing the people who they rent to, and then there's the commercial, and that's the crux of the thing. I mean, here's a new person that just came here. Erica mentioned, or maybe it was Joe that mentioned, that there was a pickup loading rocks up in Tillamook County, up at there, or in Clatsop County at their end, into their pickup. Well, you're not supposed to load rocks off of the beach into your pickup. It's against the state parks rules. You know, you can take a bucket of rocks, but you can't take a pickup load of rocks. Nancy mentioned that to cover your trash cans with bungee cords. Well, you talk to the people that pick up trash here all the time, and they say don't use bungee cords because they're dangerous. They can slip the poor guy that picks it up in the face. So what it amounts to is when you live here, you know what's going on, you know what the rules are, you know what the beaches are like, and commercial activity just doesn't go in rural areas. So that's what it boils down to. And in the second place is the two counties, both Tillamook and Clatsop, are incapable of policing a small rural community like this. It's just impossible. You have to keep coming up with rules after rules after rules, and commercial places need lots of rules. Small rural communities don't need thousands of rules. But that's what the counties are forcing us into, having to add more rules and more rules and more rules. Thanks.
All right, thank you for those comments. That, I believe, is everyone that has registered for comment or mentioned in the chat box for comment. I'll let Gail finish what she's typing there. She wanted to provide some next steps for this after this meeting. What are the next steps? Gail, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so as I brought up earlier in the meeting, what we are doing or are planning on doing at staff is to take all the comments that we've gathered here today, including the written comments, and package those up as a work session item that we'll bring to the county manager so that he can schedule it for a work session with the Board of Commissioners. Along with that, we as staff would include some possible recommendations that could go forward to the board about items to help continue the dialogue that we started today, and ways that we can possibly address some of the concerns that have been brought up. The other thing is, if we do not have your email address, if you can send that to Rob, and I'm going to type it in down here. Hold on. We'll just do a new thing. So you should all still be able to see my screen. So Rob is rledgerwood@co.clatsop.or.us, and mine is G. Henriksen. And if you can't remember those, ComDev for community development is also another one, or you can look us up on the website. But if you get us an address, an email address, or a mailing address where we can send things out to you, then we'll make sure that you get a copy of all the notes that I took during the meeting. We'll send out Rob's presentation slides, and we will also post them on the county's website. There's a page set up for the short-term rental discussion that we had today. So with that, Rob or Commissioner Thompson, did you have any other closing comments that you wanted to make to the group?
The only comment I have is there's a spelling error in my email. There's 2 GEs there. There you go. LEDGERWOOD. All right. Those are all the comments I have. Thank you, everybody. Commissioner Thompson?
This is so well begun. and it's wonderful progress. I'm grateful to staff. I'm grateful to all the neighbors who came. I'm grateful that we're going to be able to be working together. Thank you so much. Stay tuned.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And we'll keep you in touch with you all.
Thank you very much.